Yes, ma'am, we can start.
So Payal, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. I, Payal.
And I, Tanishka, welcome you all to online national workshop on the topic Ecological Footprints, Challenges and Solutions, organized by Eco Club Durva of Shama Prasad Mukherjee College, University of Delhi. I welcome all the eminent speaker, Dr. Gayatri Raghva, Environment Educational Consultant, Swami Prem Parivartan, founder of Give Me Trees Trust, Dr. Anvishya Borthakur, researcher at KU Leuven, Belgium, and Honorable Principal Ma'am, Dr. Sadhna Sharma, and to one and all present here.
Now, let us have the. Now, I would like to have our convener of Eco Club Durva, Ms. Tripti Anand, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Payal. Good morning, everyone. I welcome you all to this celebration of World Environment Education Day by Eco Club Durva of Shama Prasad Mukherjee College for Women, University of Delhi. It is an honor to have such distinguished resource persons for today's online workshop on ecological footprints, challenges, and solutions. I welcome Dr. Gayatri Raghva, UNEP, Environment Education Consultant, along with Swami Prem Parivartan Sir, the founder of the NGO Give Me Trees Foundation, and Dr. Anvishya Borthakur, a researcher from KU Leuven, Belgium University. I welcome and thank Principal Professor Sadhna Sharma ma'am for encouraging and guiding us for organizing such events. I welcome everyone to this workshop. Thank you. Over to you, Payal. Payal, you can continue now. Can you hear me?
Okay, ma'am. Let me introduce first resource person, Dr. Gayatri Raghva. Dr. Raghva joined UNEP Seoul Environmental Educational Consultant based in India. She launched the Tide Turners Challenge in India and focuses on higher education work. As in May 2021, she is in the process of setting up India Green University Network. She ensured the dissemination of Earth School, where India is second to the USA in terms of participation, and supported UNEP initiatives such as the Little Book of Green Nudges and the Race to Zero. She also has 22 years of experience of teaching at college and schools. She also spent 15 years as environmental education in UAE. She advised several international organizations and honorary executive director at Wild Collab. Now I request Dr. Gayatri Raghva ma'am to address our esteemed participants.
Thank you, Payal. Thank you very much. And it's my honor to talk to all you young people right in the morning. It makes me feel very young and energetic today, at least. So it's wonderful to meet all of you, and I'm really grateful to the principal of the college, Miss Anand, and everyone for giving me this opportunity. Although I hope I do justice to whatever that you are expecting me to do. And so without much ado, I think we can start the presentation. Is that okay with you, Payal?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. So I'm going to share my screen so that I can start my presentation. So you guys can see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So I have been asked to talk to you about ecological footprint, which is challenges and solution. Before I start, I want to tell you, I'm an environment educator and I'm not too much of a specialist, right? But I would try and do whatever I can to make it clear to all of you about the ecological footprint issue, right? So first is when we talk about ecological footprint, things come to our mind. Is it just another phrase? What is it about? Why are we having this kind of a dialogue at all today? And how did this ecological footprint come about, right? What is, the whole what, why, how of it all? So I'm going to start with a little interactive activity with all of you. I hope you're all set and ready and you've had your morning coffees and we are about to go. So I'm going to do a small activity and I want people to type out your answer on the chat screen. So please, I'm going to give you 4 questions and you have a multiple choice question. Just type out the right choice you think it is. And one of you, I don't know if it is Payal or whoever it is, will help me to see which of the multiple choice answers recorded the maximum number of answers, right? Okay, so are we set and ready? Great. I'm going to start now. Do you recognize this image? So A is, it's just a tick mark. B is, it's a correct answer. And C is, it's a Nike logo. Which is the right answer, A, B, or C?
Ma'am, C.
Right. People will check. They have written it on the chat box.
Yeah, ma'am.
Wonderful. So all of them got it right? Excellent. You have to tell me the numbers, darling. Yeah. Okay. So I assume everybody got that right. Okay. Now recognize this image. A, Mickey Mouse. It's not on the Mickey Mouse shirt, or letter M, or it's a McDonald's logo. What is that? Type out your answer, A, B, or C, quickly. And tell me, did everyone get it right? I'm waiting. Tanishka is helping me.
Yeah, ma'am. People are messaging in the chat box that the answer is C.
Oh, wonderful. So, and everybody, so 100% mark for the audience for both the questions, right? Correct? That's it. So you've passed this particular test. Now I'm going to take you to another test. Okay, recognize this image. A, bulbul, B, sparrow, C, sunbird. Tell me which of the bird got the maximum hit? And who said what? I mean, you don't have to tell me the names, but just tell me the answers. Which answer scored the maximum? The second and the third. So I'm giving a lot of mathematical stuff to Tanishka now. She has to calculate 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's so many people in the room. Yeah?
Yeah, ma'am.
Good. So I'm going to stop. Just let me know who typed what. I mean, what was the big answer and what was the first answer and the second answer? Which got the maximum?
Ma'am, A got the maximum answers.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's it. And second answer would be B or C?
Ma'am, I think C.
C. Okay, wonderful. So A got the maximum answer. Okay, we go to the last question. Okay, recognize this image. A, crow, B, bulbul, C, tree pie. So there you are. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yes. What is the answer?
Ma'am, C is the answer.
C is the answer. Good. Everybody, I think by now must have guessed what am I leading up to. Okay. Yeah. The reason why I asked all these questions are that we all recognize the logo. The logo got the maximum hit. Everybody recognized that, right? 100% answers, right? But when it comes to the first answer, which was this, the actual answer is sunbird and it's not bulbul, okay? And now that you know that that's not bulbul, it doesn't look like a crow. You guessed it. I don't know how many of them knew it or have seen it, but they must have guessed it. The answer is tree pie. But my point of asking this question is we are so easy to recognize logos, but very difficult to recognize things that just surround us. These birds are just outside our homes in Delhi. If you're all from Delhi, it's anywhere, Delhi, Punjab, wherever you are, it's just there. You will see a tree pie, you will see a sunbird. But the issue is we see them, but we don't register them. We don't even wonder who they are or what they are, right? Maybe when we were very young, but when we grew up, we just see, oh, that's a bird, that's a bird, that's about it, right? So what's a big deal? That's how we went. So the idea here is to say, what I'm going to take you to the question before we start the whole ecological footprint kind of a thing. It's important for us to start the story from what is sustainability, right? You've all heard of the term, and I'm sure you've been hearing it 100,000 times. What is sustainable development, right? And we say sustainable development is a development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generation to meet their own needs, right? So the two key words here are needs and future generation. So you've got to meet the needs of the present, needs and not greed, and the future generation, which says that there is an intergenerational aspect to the whole thing. Sustain, like we want to preserve things for the future generation, right? That's the thing. And that's you, the future generation being you. So if I'm squandering away things, I'm taking away your stuff. Remember that, right? So when we use this, sustainability is such a buzzword, everybody uses it. So let's just break it down. What is sustainability? It is ability to sustain, right? If I break it, sustain, ability to sustain. So question comes up, what do we want to sustain? The sunbird or the McDonald? What is it that we want to sustain? That was the purpose of my question. We always sustain only what we value or we love. I want my malls, I want my McDonald's, I want my Nike. But if the sunbird is not there, not a big deal. Anyway, I didn't see it. Do you get it? That's the idea that we have. But when you talk about nature and environment, oh yeah, we need to preserve it. I love birds and I love environment and I need to take care. If we really love something really hard from
Your voice is paused. Video is paused. Dr. Raghva. Dr. Raghva, can you hear me?
Ma'am, I think some network issues with her.
I think मैम एग्जिट हो गए मीटिंग से.
There's some technical issue. She'll just join back. So Sonal, keep an track when she wants.
Sure, ma'am. Sure, ma'am.
Anji.
Weather is very bad today. A lot of rain in Dwarka area.
All right, I am back and I am sorry, really apologies. And I've gone back to my laptop. So there is no, you can't see my face, but I am going to share my presentation. Is that all right with you guys?
Yes, ma'am.
It's all right.
Great. So I'm really sorry. Sometimes things start glitching and then they really glitch away. Okay, there you are. So I was talking to you about word sustainability. And I said, it all comes down to what do we value and what do we want to sustain, right? So sustainable development, the word itself says we need to take care of only needs and the future generation and not the greed, right? But we get greedy when it comes to McDonald's. We get greedy when it comes to Nike. And that's the point that I wanted to make, right? And what do we love? Do we love things enough to sustain it? That's the point. So, we have these alternative views of the world. We've got the word unsustainable. And I'm sure you've heard about the word unsustainable. There was a time in the past where we prioritized economy more than the society and the environment. So if I look of it as circles, economy was a big circle, and the society and environment, you need to consider them, but the economy is the most important thing that we need to worry about. So when we looked at that, that was an unsustainable point because we put economic growth first. Then we came down to the next thinking, which is less unsustainable, which is where we are now, where we look at all these three circles. Economy is not a big circle. Economy, society, and environment are all equal circles, but they sort of like a Venn diagram, you can connect them together. And the portion in between here, if I can see it, this is where your sustainability happens, right? Where you're able to sustain things. But then that is less unsustainable and less damaging. Because we forget one thing, it's not three equal circles. It's actually circle within circle, which is the earth is one big circle, the environment is one big circle, and the economy and the society lives within it, right? Why? Because we just have one planet. We don't have a planet B, right? So the issue here is we started sustainable development. Oh yeah, we need to develop our economy, our society, everything, but we also need to take care of the environment. So the word sustainable development comes from there. So we wanted to do all of that. But first we prioritized economy more than the society and the environment. Then we said, no, all of them are equally important. And then we now realize that all of them not. Earth and the planet is more important. Why? Because without that, you don't have anything. You don't have economy or society. That's the way that we moved. If I ask you, what is wrong with this image, is that I am showing you more than one Earth, right? That is the mistake in this particular drawing. But it's not a mistake, it's shown deliberately. Because what we are living now and the kind of life that we lead, we behave as though we have more than one Earth. But we don't have more than one Earth. We just have one Earth. So it's like we are living beyond the means of the earth to actually support us. Just bursting out of it, we are living beyond the means of the earth. We are now coming to a crunch time. What's this crunch time? We, as I said, to take you back, we had decreasing resources. We had, fine, we wanted to develop. We had a lot of demand for resources. We had a lot of, so the demand was being met as long as the resources were not in a crunch. Now we have come to a point where the resources are actually becoming less and less. So when you look at the demand is also increasing. The supply is also more. But then we have come to a crunch time because from where will we take the resources? So we need to move to a point where we need to look at sustainable supply and sustainable demand, which is our demand should not be unsustainable. We can't keep taking more and more from the earth to satisfy our appetite more and more. So at some point in time, we've got to realize that we've got to be sustainable, what we need, what we want, and how we use it. So coming to the next concept, which sort of naturally progresses from the sustainable development and sustainability to what we call as a global overshoot. What is global overshoot? Since the 70s, actually, humanity has started living beyond the capacity of the earth, which means the population of the world and the demands by this population on one earth has already started. We started overshooting it. So we are actually taking debt. We are living on borrowed time from the earth. So today's humanity uses equivalent of 1.75 Earth, right? 1.75 Earth to satisfy our wants. I won't say needs. So what is the ecological footprint? So we move from sustainability, sustainable development to Earth overshoot or the global overshoot, and we come down to
ecological footprint. So what is the ecological footprint about? It's become a very buzzword because in the 21st century, we always say, oh, you know what, our footprint is more. We want to say that our impact on the environment is more, right? So, but the origin of the word footprint dates back to the 90s, right? When a specific methodology was developed called as the ecological footprint, right? That was when the methodology was developed. So what is an ecological footprint is essentially a balance sheet for the countries, okay? It is an environment accounting tool which identifies the extent to which the human activity exceeds two types of limit. One is the resource production. We produce resources for our use, and then we also create a lot of waste. And that waste doesn't move around in the air. It goes back, right? So we need the environment to absorb our waste back, correct? So there are two things on which the ecological footprinting calculation works. One is how much of resources we produce and how much of waste do we produce in different ways. So it goes on these two things. So on what basis do we actually calculate? It's very simple, very, very simple. It's easy for you to understand. You see this drawing, you've got an arch which is coming from the up and you've got an arch going from below. The lower one is the biocapacity. That is the capacity of the earth to provide for our food, our whatever life, whatever that we need to live on. So that's the capacity of the earth to provide for us. And above arch is the resources that we are using to produce what we want and how we want to live, and the waste that we throw back. Because the waste also, the system has to absorb. If you examine nature, in nature, there are no wastes. Leave it to nature. Nature always recycles everything. Nature recycles its own waste as resources, right? It becomes resource back again. But here we are using the resources, we produce things and we throw waste, but we don't necessarily recycle it. It goes on and it goes and adds and spoils our biocapacity still further. So what happens is our biocapacity is becoming less and less, and our footprint, which is the resource we use and the waste that we generate, becomes more and more, right? That is exactly what is happening. Now, the next thing is, okay, we talk about biocapacity, but what is biocapacity? How much of biocapacity does the earth actually have, right? If you take stock of the earth, 25% of our earth is biologically productive. And how do I say that it's biologically productive? Because it is here that 80 to 90% of the photosynthesis, which is basis for all life, actually happens. All right. If you look at this particular drawing that I have given and look at the percentage, 67% of the earth is just, the deep ocean waters, which is saline, which is just too salty to have anything. You get it? That's a maximum area. Then we have 11% of the land, which is ice caps, deserts, and barren lands. Here again, we can't produce anything. All right. Then we have cropland, pastures, and forests. Here we get the goods from the forest. We expect the forest to absorb our waste carbon emissions. We also get pastures, the animal and animal products, and we get the cropland from where we get our food to eat. So this is 18% of the area. And from the ocean, we also get fishes, right? So that's the biologically productive part of the ocean, which is about 4%. All right. So if we connect all of that, then we have only 25% of the planet, which is actually providing for all of us to live. Now, let us see how much is available per person. Because this is a statistic from the past, so you have 6.4 billion people at that point in time, and if you had 53 billion hectares, and how much global hectare per person is 1.8 global hectare per person is available. And out of this 1.8 global hectares, we need to get all our produce, wants, needs, everything met. But then the question is, are we the only being on this earth? We need to share this earth with a lot more organisms. So that 1.8 global hectare that we are just, finding out is not only for us. We have to share this with all other life forms. And if all other life forms also go, then the biocapacity further get reduced. Why? Because these animals have a role to play. They are maintaining our ecosystem. They are maintaining our biocapacity. And they also need food. So from that 1.8 hectares, if I'm not going to share that with the animals and the animals go away, that 1.8 hectares will shrink even further, right? We have got to keep that in mind. What are our demands? We're talking about demands. What are our demands and where are the supplies coming from? So as I said, footprint looks at two things, resources and waste, and amount of biologically productive land, which is required to produce both, produce the resources or the waste. So from the pasture land, we get, all the animal products. From the forest, we get timber, and we get from infrastructure. We need land for our built-up area. We need land for our infrastructure. Where would the energy come from? So we are drawing out energy from the earth as well. So where are all our stuff coming from, and where do they come? Basically speaking, we look at 6 types, right? We look at the cropland, from where we are getting our food, pasture, from where we get our milk and other supplies, marine area, from where we get our fishes, forest land, which absorbs our carbon dioxide and also supplies us with timber, fuel, etc., etc. Energy land, from where we draw up our energy, and the built-up area where we have got our houses and our parks, and where we party and we do whatever that we want to do. So these are all our requirements, and this is coming from the biocapacity area. Some of the terms that I'd like to tell you about is, we often use the word biocapacity deficit. So what do we mean by a biocapacity deficit is, whenever the ecological footprint is more than the biocapacity, we call it as ecologically deficit or biocapacity deficit. So we have biocapacity reserve, which is essentially when the biocapacity exceeds, is more than the ecological footprint. For example, places like, let's say, Costa Rica, or some really tropical paradise where there's a lot of biocapacity there, because you've got lots of trees, plants, forests, etc. There maybe you have more biocapacity, and if that area is not developed so much, then the footprint will be less. You get it? So there the biocapacity reserve will be more, but the footprint is less. Ecological footprints are normally calculated. You can do it on an individual basis or for groups of people, organization, country, and globally. We also have imports and exports, and we should not forget that. So imports and exports, how do they get addressed? The imported food, then when we import the food, then that is then added to us. For example, if I am sitting here and I'm eating apple produced, or if I'm eating iceberg lettuce produced in Holland, that's the Holland's biocapacity area, right? And that will be added to me, because that the cropland is Holland, it's produced there, and I am using it in India. So the imported food also adds on to our footprint. So personally, if I live a life where, for example, in my food, I'm going to eat an iceberg lettuce, and I'm going to eat Australian milk, and I'm going to eat the Swiss cheese and everything like that. All of that also adds on to my footprint when I measure my individual footprint. So imports get added, but when we export, the export gets added to the other party. So if I'm exporting a lot of wheat to a particular country, that country's footprint will go up. Whoever is using that wheat in that country's footprint will go up. So even trade is accounted into it. And there is another word that I'd like to introduce to you, which is ecological debtor, which is a country where the ecological consumption exceeds so much. It exceeds its biocapacity, and it is a debtor country because it is living on other countries. I lived in UAE for many, many years, and it was an ecological debtor country. Why? Because most of the food that we ate in UAE came from outside. It was never produced. And so it was coming and flown out from all parts of the world. So that's how we became ecological debtor country. A country's balance is how much bioproductive area you have and how much of footprint are you producing. This is how we look at a balance of a particular country. Every year, WWF produces this Living Planet report, and that very beautifully shows you exactly how much of a debtor are we, how much of biocapacity are we consuming, and what is our ecological footprint. Now, globally, if I look at what is the current global ecological footprint, we are all living, that is 2017 one. We are all living as though we've got 3 Earths. and not one Earth. But we know that we've got just one Earth. So again, our ecological footprint globally is also very high. Okay. If I look at ecological footprint and human development interest, so if I show you this graph and I take you through this graph, if I show you like you have Africa, Middle East, Asia, Pacific, different regions of the world. If you see this graph, you will observe that if I say take North America, which is North America, then the number of Earths then become, let's take this one particular, they become more and more. The very high human development, wherever this is a very funny thing, because the countries which have a very high GDP, the country we are very highly developed, we have a very high ecological footprint. Why? Because the kind of development, this is where the issue between how do I define development? In fact, the whole word sustainable development is like an oxymoron. How can you keep something and how can you also develop? Develop means you're growing up, right? The issue comes because how do we define development? If I define development as I'm sitting in Delhi, but I want to live like as though I live in US or in New York, then I'm in for trouble because my debt, ecological debt, will keep on piling up. So most of the developed countries are actually having a very, very high ecological footprint. Why? Because they consume. It all boils down to consumption. So look at India. Where are we in India? If you look at it, we have only 0.9 global hectare per person. So per capita is very less. And it is also very funny. Ecological footprint of an average individual in India has actually declined in the recent years. So you'll say, oh yeah, our GDP has increased, our ecological footprint has decreased. So we are very good because we are developing in the right manner. No, you're wrong. We are developing like all other countries. But what is actually happening here is that majority of the Indians are not benefiting from this development. In fact, because of our population, our per capita footprint comes out low, but our biocapacity is much less. We are the debtor country. Biocapacity has reduced in India, right? So biocapacity has reduced, but still the ecological footprint shows low. How is it? Because India is not developed. I just told you that the developed countries have a high ecological footprint. So now India is not so developed. So we have a low ecological footprint. So that's good. And our GDP is going high. So are we going good? Are we developing in the right manner? The answer is no, we are still not developing in the right manner because our biocapacity, the land from which we are producing everything, has become less and less. And it tells you that more and more people actually are going hungry. And only very less people have a high ecological footprint. So some India facts, India accounts for 6% of the global ecological footprint. So the total footprint, if you look at it as a country, it's very high. We have 4%, the whole world, if we look at what are the good areas and the bad areas, where you have more biocapacity, 4% of the global biocapacity is in India. India supports 17% of the global population. India's ecological, so why are we having a growing ecological deficit? Is because of increasing population, increasing consumption. We are consuming more and more, and particularly non-renewable energy. You remember when I import, it comes onto me. So I'm importing all these crude oil from everywhere, and it is piling onto my ecological footprint as an Indian. So cropland is one of the major area in India, because you know that agricultural area is very, very vast, and we have forests. Forests and grazing land are actually decreasing, and cropland is there, right? So human and biodiversity both are competing on the same land. You know that the tigers are disappearing, so many animals are disappearing in India. Why? Because we are competing with them for taking our produce from those lands. And we are losing our forests. So we are losing the land which can absorb the carbon waste. So the waste is not getting absorbed either. So you remember the resource production and the waste. That accounts for your ecological footprint. High income people consume all resources and the low income people depend directly on local biocapacity. That is from the forest, or they need the fuel wood or whatever it is. As the biocapacity becomes less and less and less, the people who are poor becomes poorer and poorer and poorer, because all these people are dependent on direct biocapacity, on their local biocapacity. In rural areas, in all these areas, they're depending on their land, on their cropland, on their forest for their survival. As they keep getting reduced, the poor people getting more and more poorer. Okay, the rich people have the money to buy it all anyway. So climate change is another factor which contributes to ecological debt in India because we really import a lot of fuel. So then, what are the solutions? What do we think? We need to change the way we think. Really, I mean, there's no silver bullet here. We need to change the way we think. COVID gave a chance. In fact, when the COVID happened, consumption went low, so it was good for the ecological footprint. But the moment the COVID, I'm sure you saw just sometime back in Delhi, when they were going to announce this lockdown sometime back in Sarojini Nagar, each shop was giving, okay, for 100 rupees, we'll give you 5 t-shirts. So the whole people started moving towards that, regardless of whether there was COVID or not. So it tells you that given a chance, we want to consume more and more. The only thing is you need to reduce your consumption. Sustainable production and consumption is the only answer. And I would say each of us have to calculate our personal footprint first. How much of a burden am I individually on the earth? You can go to the websites. There are lots of websites where you can actually calculate your personal footprint and even your family's footprint. I would also urge you to join I Live Simply movement started by Sonam Wangchuk. This is supported by UNEP. This is something that would help you to streamline your habits and live in a more sustainable manner. And with that, I'm going to stop and thank you very much. Oh, sorry, you could see my presentation, right? Could you see my presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. Right, so I'm sorry I can't show you my face, but you can ask me any questions should you want to, or I may have even exceeded my time, and apologies for that.
It's okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for giving your valuable insights. Let us take some questions from participants. Over to you, Astha. If there is any question, please put on the chat section.
Hello, Payal.
Yes, Asta.
From my side, question is that in what ways we can increase public awareness of our ecological footprints?
I'm sorry, you want to enhance public awareness. Yes, we need to, but more than that, beta, I feel we need to change the way we think what is development. I mean, we often say we want to take care of environment, and everybody says, we need to take care of environment, we need to do that. But nobody's willing to change their habit. आजकल सबको पता है कि क्लाइमेट चेंज हो रहा है, जैसे मौसम का हाल हो रहा है, सबको पता है कि क्या हो रहा है. Whether they are educated or not, they went to school or not, doesn't matter. Everybody knows things are not right? And everybody knows that we are messing up with the environment, but we are just not willing to change ourselves. Why? Because we still want to behave as though there is no tomorrow, and everything that is there in the earth is for me only. That kind of a concept has to change what we feel. If you're going to use more and more, then we're not going to be around for a long time as a species. Is India going in a good direction in respect to sustainable development? Yes and no. Yes and no, right? Because the fact I just showed you, if we were actually sustainably developing, our biocapacity would not be reducing, correct? If you reduce your biocapacity, your forest land reduces, your pasture land reduces, your crop land reduces, all of those land reduces, right? And your built up area becomes more, your energy extraction from wherever that you're doing is becoming more and more. You're using the land, right, for all of that. So you are using more and you are wasting more. So when your biocapacity reduces, your footprint will become more. But yes, for some time, everybody can have a lot of maja and enjoy yourselves, right? But then at some point, we'll have to come down with a thud. And the sooner we realize and correct our course, the better we will be. But then, yes, there are a lot of programs that are, this is another thing that all of you as students should remember. There is a lot of greenwash everywhere. अब ये कप कौन का बनाया हुआ कप यूज कर लो, प्लास्टिक मत यूज करो. भाई कौन कहाँ से आएगा? प्रॉपलैंड से आएगा ना. So, at the end of the day, don't go for a greenwash. Live as simply as you can what you need. And I think you guys can set a trend. University students can set a trend. It is your world, remember. And we are squandering it, especially my age people. We've squandered it. We are all guilty. And I really, really feel very guilty. But we are like this, we're just rolling down. We are going on a path where we don't know where we are going. So I don't think yes and no. So what do we need more to make oneself stand among developed countries? What is developed country, beta? I feel if you go to interior areas, जहां हम कहते हैं tribal area है, ये है, वो developed नहीं है. Actually, they are more developed because they've got more biocapacity. At the end of the day, it is the biocapacity that will sustain you. Developed का मतलब बदलना पड़ेगा ना. अगर आप developed बोलोगे, if developed is I need to have 2 cars, I need to have 1 car, I need to have a 4-bedroom apartment, I need to have all of that, then that is developed. Then वो development का concept ही गलत है ना. तभी तो problem है. We do double speak. हम development भी चाहते हैं. अरे हमें ये करना है, हमें विकास बनना है, हमें ये करना है, वो करना है, ये करते जा रहे हो. But at the same time, we are squandering away what the biocapacity the earth has offered. It calls for a change in your mindset. Change in the way you think. Paradigm shift, total shift in the way we think. What is our worldview? What do you think the world is for? You've got to think of all those things at some point in time because it calls for a total change in your mindset. So, any more questions? Stand among developed country, Dr. Bhatnagar, is that we've got a lot of practices that we had in India. हमारे ट्रेडिशनल वाटर हार्वेस्टिंग सिस्टम्स हो या हमारे ट्रेडिशनल बड़े सारे सिस्टम्स थे जो बहुत स्ट्रांग थे, बहुत सस्टेनेबल थे. But somewhere along the line, we started aping everything what the West or what the so-called developed countries are doing. And that's where the problem comes. हम अगर development को define करें, what is development? जैसे भूटान ने happiness index measure करता है, GDP ने measure करता है, how people are happy. So we need to look at all of that. We need to have a real strict change. The way we can become developed is we just become more simple, more humble, more inclusive of everything. Because as I said, we are not the only species on this earth. We are sharing this with so many more organisms. Any other question?
Ma'am, there is one question from Meghna. What is the largest contributor to the global ecological footprint?
बड़े सारे हैं, consumption, production है. But carbon, the way we are using our energy is also contributing. Food भी देख लो, in different countries it's different, but then food भी देख लो. I mean, if you go to say in US or somewhere, if you go to a burger joint, $1 में आपको burger मिल जाएगी, जिसमें कितने सारे bread और meat और सब चीज जलती है, which takes for energy, which takes for water, which takes for everything. So that $1 burger का environmental cost बहुत ज्यादा होगा, मगर हम pay नहीं कर रहे हैं ना environment को, तो हमें पता नहीं, हम सिर्फ $1 pay कर. But you go buy a mushroom, जो wild grow हो सकती है, आराम से उसकी खेती हो सकती है, which is high protein, वो बहुत महंगा होगा, वो होगा बहुत ज्यादा, $8, $7 ऐसे करेंगे. So the issue is that हमारा economics, at the end of the day, the factors are the way we live, the way we consume. अलग-अलग countries में अलग-अलग consumption की जरूरत पड़ जाती है. So the way we consume is the major thing.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. I hope it was okay for you people and I covered basics. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, and thank you, Tripti, and thank you, Principal. Thank you so much, all of you, and all the best to you.
Ma'am, there's a vote of thanks for you. One of our teachers is going to give a vote of thanks to you, and then you.
Oh,
yeah, just a moment, please.
Yeah.
Okay.
A very good morning to all. It is my privilege to propose a vote of thanks to Dr. Gayatri Raghva, ma'am. Ma'am, you have graced us energetically with your tremendous knowledge on the ecological footprint, ma'am. And as you have started with a set of questions, and that was so interesting. And then you have linked them nicely with the concepts of sustainability, the human development, ma'am, biocapacity, the demand and supply in terms of the resources, ma'am. So, ma'am, you have also explained the status of the India's ecological footprint, ma'am. So extend the hearty thanks on behalf of Durva, the Eco Club, the Shama Prasad Mukherjee College, for your enlightening lecture that has enlightened our minds towards reducing the consumption and also to live in a sustainable manner. With your lecture, the takeaway that we have put in our mind is the simplicity. Like simplicity is the key for the sustainability and hence for our survival, ma'am. So very thankful for your precious time, ma'am, that you have given us. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. Thank you. You've flattered me. I don't really think that. I hope it's enjoyed it, and thank you very much, Dr. Singh. And
it was very
all
nice.
of you, and all the best to your event. Please continue the fight. This is not just a lecture that you had to organize, so you organize or aa gaye, chalo kar liya, ek program ho gaya, ek event ho gaya. No, you got to really take it to heart, students. You really have to take it to heart because we are messing with your lives. Please remember that.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I introduce our third speaker of the day. Second speaker of the day, Swami Prem Parivartan sir, famously known as People Baba, was born to an army officer family in Chandigarh in 1966. At birth, his name was Azad Jain. After his college and university education, Azad Jain came to be known as Swami Prem Parivartan. As he took to teaching yoga and meditation as his career, he held a postgraduate degree in English literature from University of Pune. He took to a teaching university in morning hours, and by evening, People Baba was a yoga practitioner. He has planted and conserved over 1.25 crore people trees. He continues to do so every day, and same till his last breath. Now, I request Swami Prem Parivartan sir to address our esteemed participants. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Namaskaram. Very fortunate to have heard Dr. Gayatri speaking. बहुत अच्छा लगा. Something on simple living. This is something which I have been talking about for the last 30 years, telling people, and she said it so beautifully, so beautifully. I love the presentation. Thank you so much, Dr. Gayatri, if you are around. It was really an honor to listen to you. Thank you so much. Okay, so I was told that I have to talk about ecological footprints, but you already have very good speakers and academic, stalwarts here. I would like to just share a few things because I've been into afforestation work for the last 45 years. On 26th of January this year, 2022, I'm completing exactly 45 years. So I planted my first 9 saplings on 26th of January 1977. I was inspired by my teacher. So you people are very lucky that you are studying environmental sciences, you are studying whatever subjects you are studying, and you have access. Ab Zoom hai, Google hai, you have the internet. Hamare time pe to kuch hota hi nahi tha. We had no access. We had nobody to tell us, what these things are. But when I was in the 4th grade, I was just 10 years of age. I was studying in a elementary school in Pune, and I had a teacher by the name Mr. Williams, and she used to tell us a lot of stories on bird, bees, butterflies, and she would talk about the earth, about volcanoes, she would talk about the oceans. I still remember in the 4th grade, the first country we studied was Chile. Chile is one of the most beautiful countries in the world. It's part of South America. And she started teaching us South American continent. Then she went on to Argentina, she went on to Brazil. And when she came to Brazil, she started talking about the Amazon forest and the Amazon River. And it was so fascinating, and she would tell us in terms of stories. And I really, whatever inspiration, motivation happened, it happened. That's a long, long story. But the end result was that she started saying that doctor, engineer, to koi bhi ban jata hai. Doctor, engineer, professor, MBA, chartered accountant, ye to koi bhi ban jata hai. But we don't have people working full time for the planet. We don't have. So this is something which really hit me, even at the age of 10. So when I was 11 years old, it was a very, um, it, something happened, and then, she told me something like, पेड़ों से कहानी शुरू होती है, पेड़ों पे खत्म होती है, So basically, she was talking about biodiversity. She was talking about deforestation. She was talking about how, we are losing our forests, we are losing our mountains. We are losing the mountain forests. We are losing our rivers. We are losing our ponds. We are losing our agricultural land. We are, something which Dr. Gayatri was hinting at, and it really, really affected me. It really affected me. And the people trees under which we had sat and we had played and we had lived, because my grandmother was living in an ashram in Allahabad, and I used to go and spend time with her, a lot of time with her. And the same people trees were cut right in front of my eyes. So in a nutshell, things happened and the story came together, and I started planting saplings in 1977. Now, one major thing which my grandmother explained to me was about creating soil. So she used to always tell me something that अगर तुम्हारी मिट्टी अच्छी है तो उसमें कुछ भी लगाओगे वो अच्छा उगेगा. And it made a lot of sense, So she used to, at that time when I went to live with her, she was 70 years of age. She died at the age of 94. And for 24 years, she actually really mentored me, And she would talk about the biochemistry of soil. She would talk about composting. She taught me how to vermicompost. She taught me various types of earthworms, कैसे होते हैं, कौन कितना मिट्टी खाता है, किस तरह से काउडंग के साथ आप बना सकते हो, एंड मटर के छिलकों को मत फेंको, सब्जियों के छिलकों को मत फेंको, उसको इकट्ठा करो. In a nutshell, friends, I went on to, by the time it was 2003 September, Give Me Trees Ecological Club, like which we had created in 1977. That was well past about another 20, 25, 27 years of work till that time we had done. We created the largest composting network on the planet. We had 16,000 families creating soil. We had 16,000 families till that time. As on September 2003, पूरे विश्व में, we had Egypt, we had Philippines, we had Japan, because a lot of students used to come to me and they used to easy methods of creating compost. Because if your soil is not good, we do a lot of talking on saplings and native indigenous species, and ye species lagao, wo species mat lagao. We talk about a lot on theory and everything. लेकिन अगर आप प्रैक्टिकल लेवल पे देखो, प्रैक्टिकल चीज देखेंगे, तो अगर आपकी मिट्टी अच्छी है, कहते हैं ना हवा, पानी और मिट्टी, अगर आपकी हवा अच्छी है, मिट्टी अच्छी है, पानी अच्छा है, तो आप कुछ भी कहीं भी ग्रो कर सकते हैं. कहीं भी ग्रो नहीं कर सकते हैं, ऑफ कोर्स क्लाइमेट डज मैटर, लेकिन ये है कि आप बहुत अच्छी क्वालिटी की चीजें उगा सकते हैं. नाउ I would just like to touch upon this aspect of our work, Give Me Trees Trust. We are known for creating nearly 272 forests in this country. We have done about 63 big forests and 272 total हमारा urban landscapes में, rural में, remote areas में. We've done a lot of work in Jammu Kashmir, Punjab, Himachal, Uttarakhand, Rajasthan, Maharashtra में बहुत काम किया है. 18 states, 202 districts. We have created urban clusters. We work with species, more than 60 species of native plants. Primarily, we work with people tree and the neem tree. People जो है वो मेरे को बहुत प्यारा लगता था, क्योंकि मैं उसको कटते हुए देखता था, हाईवेज पे कटते हुए देखता था. तो नानी ने कहा कि तुम पीपल के ऊपर काम करो. In 2010, when I completed जो verified हमारे plants थे, वो 1 crore 27 lakhs थे people के. पीपल के 1,27 लाख थे और 74 लाख हमारा नीम का पेड़ था। तो तकरीबन 2 करोड़ प्लस हमारे पेड़ जिंदा थे, खड़े थे, मोर देन 30 to 40 फीट हाइट के थे, अच्छी कैनोपी थी, हेल्दी थी। सो जब एक तरीके से वेरीफाई हुआ, ऑडिट हुआ, then I got a call from John Abraham, and he called me over to an award ceremony, and I got my first national award for planting 2 crore trees. Having said this, I'm not here to talk about tree planting today. No, that is not the thing. We were talking about the ecological footprint, and I would just like to touch upon, in a very desi way, in a very simple language, something which Dr. Bharti raised, a point, very, 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 very valid point. And then I'll try and relate it to the composting networks that we have created. We talk about soil, and उससे मैं थोड़ा सा relate करूँगा. एक चीज बच्चों आपको समझनी होगी, फ्रेंड्स, that एक तो सबसे बड़ी दिक्कत जो इंडिया में इस वक्त है, हमने जो हमारा बेसिक इकोनॉमिक स्ट्रक्चर था ना, वो फ्रेंड्स हमारा सारा का सारा एग्रीकल्चर और फॉरेस्ट्री बेस्ड था. फॉर थाउजेंड्स एंड थाउजेंड्स ऑफ years, दिस कंट्री इंडिया हैज बीन बेसिकली, कहते हैं ना, कृषि प्रधान देश. ठीक है, और कृषि प्रधान देश जो था, हमारी जो सेकेंडरी इनकम्स थी हमारी फॉरेस्ट से आती. आज से 200 साल पहले, 150 साल पहले, इवन 100 साल पहले भी आप अगर लगाएं तो हमारा नियरली 70% लैंड जो था वो या तो एग्रीकल्चर के नीचे था, इनफैक्ट 80% या फॉरेस्ट के नीचे था. हमने एक डेवलपमेंट मॉडल फॉलो किया, वो राइट है, रॉन्ग है, वो आप लोग डिसाइड कीजिए, हम उस पर कमेंट नहीं करेंगे. मैं सिर्फ शेयरिंग कर रहा हूं जो मैंने 45 साल इंडिया में घूम घूम के जो इतने सारे प्रांतों में काम किया, डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स में काम किया, रूरल एरियाज में काम किया, पंचायतों के साथ काम किया, फार्मर्स के साथ काम किया, मैं वो शेयरिंग जल्दी से आपके साथ करना चाहूंगा. तब आपको समझ आएगा इकोलॉजिकल फुटप्रिंट की जो हम पूरी बात करते हैं, हम कहाँ गलत हो गए. हमने जो मॉडल्स फॉलो किए, मैं ये भी नहीं कहूंगा कि हमने वी एप्ड द वेस्ट, क्योंकि वेस्ट गलत नहीं है, वेस्ट गलत नहीं है. आई हैव बीन टू यूरोप, मैं टीचिंग असाइनमेंट्स पे, आई एम बाय प्रोफेशन आई एम अ टीचर. मैं इंग्लिश लिटरेचर पढ़ाता हूँ, सोशल हिस्ट्री पढ़ाता हूँ, हैनोवर यूनिवर्सिटी में गया हुआ हूँ. तो मैं जब यूरोप गया तो मैंने एक चीज समझी कि जर्मनी जो कर रहा है वो अपने हिसाब से, अपने क्लाइमेटिक कंडीशन से, अपनी पॉपुलेशन के हिसाब से, अपनी पढ़ाई लिखाई के हिसाब से, अपनी हिस्ट्री के हिसाब से वो ठीक कर रहा है. डेनमार्क जो कर रहा है वो ठीक कर रहा है. आई वेंट टू स्कैंडिनेवियन कंट्रीज, वो ठीक कर रहे हैं, वो अपने हिसाब से ठीक कर रहे हैं. हमारा जो हिस्ट्री है वो हमारा, हम कृषि प्रधान देश है, हम एग्रीकल्चर बेस्ड हमारा पूरा था. हमारा क्रॉपलैंड्स के ऊपर हमारी पूरा जो हम पूरा देश चलता था वो एग्रीकल्चर और फॉरेस्ट्री पे चलता था. लेकिन हमने अपने मॉडल्स बदल दिए. हमने सोचा कि हम वो करें जो यूएस में होता है, हम वो करें जो इंग्लैंड में होता है, हम वो करें जो यूरोप में होता है या कोई भी कंट्री में होता है. एंड समवेयर चिंतन चला गया. Somewhere we lost that connect with our own selves. We lost that connect that what we are as a nation, as a country. अब जैसे एक छोटी सी बात है, एग्रीकल्चर ले लीजिए. क्योंकि बाहर के देश केमिकल फर्टिलाइजर यूज कर रहे थे अपनी उपज को बढ़ाने के लिए, हार्वेस्ट को बढ़ाने के लिए, यील्ड को बढ़ाने के लिए, तो हम लोगों ने भी 1960s, मिड 60s, 70s में हमने भी केमिकल फर्टिलाइजर डालना शुरू कर दिया. दैट वाज, आई थिंक, वन ऑफ द वर्स्ट थिंग्स इंडिया कुड हैव डन. आज से 70 साल पहले, आज से 70-80 साल पहले पूरा इंडिया ऑर्गेनिक था. एटलीस्ट 95-98% तो ऑर्गेनिक था. आज हम जो फैशन की बात करते हैं कि फैशनेबल टर्म हो गया है कि ऑर्गेनिक है, ऑर्गेनिक. ठीक है, आप इस बात को समझिएगा, क्योंकि इसी से सारी चीजें लिंक्ड हैं। अगर हम अपना एग्रीकल्चर, जो हमारा बेसिक हमारा स्वरूप था, हम एग्रीकल्चर में टेक्नोलॉजी लेकर आते, एग्रीकल्चर में साइंटिफिक और तरीके लेकर आते, इंस्टेड ऑफ यूजिंग केमिकल फर्टिलाइजर्स, हम जो मैकेनाइजेशन लानी है एग्रीकल्चर में ठीक से लेकर आते, काफी कुछ लाए भी हम, लेकिन हम जो ट्रेडिशनल विजडम थी वो कहीं भूल गए। जो हमारा असली स्वरूप था वो हम, अच्छा हुआ क्या उससे, जिस तरह की डेवलपमेंट हमारी हुई है, जैसे डॉक्टर भारती ने बहुत अच्छा बोला, व्हाट काइंड ऑफ डेवलपमेंट आर वी हैविंग। लेट मी टेल यू, आई हैव ट्रैवल्ड थ्रू आउट इंडिया, आई हैव बीन एक्सटेंसिवली टू नॉर्थ ईस्ट, आई हैव बीन टू जम्मू कश्मीर। जम्मू कश्मीर का तो कोई ऐसे शायद ही कस्बा हो, कोई ऐसा तालुका रीजन हो जो मैं नहीं गया हूँ। आई हैव बीन टू ईच एंड एवरी विलेज, every part of Maharashtra, Karnataka, UP, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Haryana, Punjab, Uttarakhand, Himachal। जो पूरा कोलैप्स मैं देख रहा हूँ वो मैं देख रहा हूँ एग्रीकल्चर सेक्टर। पूरा जो कोलैप्स मैं देख रहा हूँ वो देख रहा हूँ कि हमारे जो गांव में हैं वो यंगस्टर्स जो हैं वो माइग्रेट कर रहे हैं सिटीज की तरफ, बिकॉज दे डोंट नो व्हाट टू डू विद द लैंड व्हिच हैज बीन लेफ्ट बाय द ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स एंड पेरेंट्स। दे डोंट नो व्हाट टू डू विद द विलेजेस, दे डोंट नो व्हाट टू डू विद द लैंड व्हिच दे ऑलरेडी, मतलब मैं ऐसे कई, हमारी टीम में ऐसे वॉलंटियर्स जब शुरू में आए थे, ऐसे ऐसे लोग हैं जिनके पास 20-20 एकड़ जमीन है, 15-15 एकड़ जमीन है, लेकिन आके कहते थे सर हमें पता नहीं क्या करें हम उस जमीन पे, बिकॉज एग्रीकल्चर एजुकेशन के ऊपर, एग्रीकल्चर अवेयरनेस के ऊपर पॉलिटिकल प्रायोरिटी नहीं है। Politicians don't talk about it. Politicians don't talk about environment. Politicians don't make it cool for the younger generation कि वो एग्रीकल्चर में जाएं, फार्मिंग में जाएं, फॉरेस्ट्री में जाएं, सोशल फॉरेस्ट्री में जाएं, लाइफ स्टॉक मैनेजमेंट में जाएं। वो वो कूल नहीं हो पा रहा। जब तक वो कूल नहीं हो पाएगा तब तक जो यंग जनरेशन है, जो विलेजेस में लोग बैठे हैं, कूल का मतलब क्या हुआ? कूल का मतलब ये नहीं है कि इंस्टाग्राम पे, सोशल मीडिया पे कूल होना। कूल का मतलब ये हुआ कि उसको ट्रेंडिंग में लेकर आना, उसको नैरेटिव में लेकर आना। अगर हमारा देश इकोलॉजिकल फुटप्रिंट पे बात नहीं करेगा, ठीक है, अभी जैसे डॉक्टर गायत्री ने कहा, अगर हमारा देश उस चीज के ऊपर बात नहीं करेगा तो कैसे होगा? आप आगे बढ़ ही नहीं पाएंगे। We need to bring it into the national narrative। हम सिर्फ और सिर्फ जो है धर्म की बात करते हैं, पॉलिटिक्स की बात करते हैं, शाम को आप देखो लड़ाई झगड़े जितने भी टीवी पे चलते हैं, लेकिन कोई भी पर्यावरण के बारे में बात नहीं कर रहा, कोई एयर वाटर सॉइल के बारे में नहीं बात कर रहा। कोई पॉलिटिशियन देखा है जो सॉइल के ऊपर बात कर रहा हो है? कोई ये कह रहा है कि नदियों को हम कैसे बचाएंगे, क्या वो मुद्दा होता है? क्या वो इलेक्शंस का मुद्दा होता है? सो दिस इज समथिंग विच द यंगर जनरेशन, द जनरेशन जैसे आप लोग हैं, ये बहुत जरूरी है कि एक तो जो चीज है, हम पॉलिटिकल स्पेस में इस कॉन्वर्सेशंस को लेकर आए। हमारे एग्रीकल्चर, हमारा फॉरेस्ट्री, हमारा एयर वाटर सॉइल, हमारा जो भी हमारा AQI, ये पॉलिटिकल स्पेस में आनी चाहिए। इलेक्शंस होते हैं, हमारे रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स जो हैं, चाहे वो कॉर्पोरेटर हो, MLA हो, MP हो, उनसे हम क्वेश्चंस जब तक नहीं करेंगे तब तक उनको इस चीज की सीरियसनेस नहीं लगेगी, तभी वो पॉलिसी में रिफ्लेक्ट होगा, तभी वो एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिवली और एग्जीक्यूशन में, इम्प्लीमेंटेशन में रिफ्लेक्ट होगा। सो दिस इज वन थिंग दैट आई वुड लाइक टू, वन टेक अवे टुडे इज दैट एज द यंगर जनरेशन, पढ़ी लिखी जनरेशन है, आप लोग फ्यूचर में आप लोग साइंटिस्ट बनेंगे, पॉलिसी मेकर्स बनेंगे, कुछ आप में से IAS बनेंगे, कुछ IFS बनेंगे, कुछ साइंटिस्ट बनेंगे, कुछ एग्रीकल्चर यूनिवर्सिटीज में या कहीं आप बड़े बड़े NGOs को हेड करेंगे। सो मेक श्योर कि पॉलिटिकल स्पेस में ये मुद्दे आए। ये मेरा आपसे रिक्वेस्ट है कि पॉलिटिकल स्पेस में इकोलॉजिकल फुटप्रिंट पे बात हो, कार्बन फुटप्रिंट पे बात हो, हम जो कंजम्पशन की डॉक्टर गायत्री जैसे बात कर रही थी, हम उसके बारे में बात करें कि हम कर क्या रहे हैं, हम कौन सी डायरेक्शन में डेवलपमेंट की बात करें। डेवलपमेंट पर से इज नॉट अ बैड थिंग, डेवलपमेंट इज अ गुड थिंग। आपको सड़कें भी चाहिए, एयरपोर्ट भी चाहिए, बस स्टैंड भी चाहिए, आपको बसेस भी चाहिए, आपको ऑटोमोबाइल चाहिए, सब करो ना। स्वीडन भी कर रहा है, नॉर्वे भी कर रहा है, फिनलैंड भी कर रहा है, एंड आई बीन देयर एंड दे आर डूइंग इट सो ब्यूटिफुली, दे आर डूइंग इट सो ब्यूटिफुली। वो इतनी रिस्पॉन्सिबली डेवलपमेंट करें, रिस्पॉन्सिबल डेवलपमेंट, ठीक है, तो वो होनी बहुत जरूरी है। एक मेरा जो फेवरेट टॉपिक है जो मैं आपसे डिस्कस करना चाहूंगा वो ये है कि हम चाहेंगे कि जैसे एवरी इंडिविजुअल आप जो आपका जो किचन वेस्ट है, हम एक प्रण लें, एक कैंपेन जैसे हम लोग एक चलाते हैं, हम उसको मिट्टी की खुशबू कैंपेन बोलते हैं, कि हम अपना जितना भी किचन वेस्ट है हम उसको घर से बाहर ना जाने दें। कैसे? हम उस किचन वेस्ट को अपने गमलों में, जैसे आपने 20 गमले नर्सरी से खरीद लिए, उसके अंदर आप किचन वेस्ट डालते हैं, थोड़े से सूखे पत्ते डाले, हल्की सी थोड़ी सी मिट्टी डाल दी, अगर कहीं पर सूखा गोबर कहीं नजर आया थोड़ा सा उठा के ले आए, 2-4 फिस्टफुल्स भी लेकर आए और उसके ऊपर डाल दिया। क्योंकि एज यू अंडरस्टैंड, यू आर स्टूडेंट्स ऑफ यू आर स्टडिंग एनवायरमेंटल साइंसेज, तो यू अंडरस्टैंड, तो उसमें जो बैक्टीरिया पैथोजेंस होते हैं वो दे हेल्प इन डिकम्पोजिशन वेरी फास्ट। तो अगर इस तरह से किया जाए, इस वक्त दिल्ली में हमारे पास अराउंड 3000 फैमिलीज हैं जो इस तरह से किचन वेस्ट से कंपोस्ट बना रहे हैं। और ये जो वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट हो रही है, बायो वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट हो रही है, इट इज बेसिकली गोइंग डायरेक्टली ऑन टू आवर एफॉरेस्टेशन साइट्स। एंड जो हमारी एफॉरेस्टेशन साइट्स पे जा रही है, ये पूरी की पूरी जो खाद जो जा रही है, यू विल नॉट बिलीव इट, फॉरेस्ट डिपार्टमेंट और हॉर्टिकल्चर डिपार्टमेंट हमको बोलते हैं कि हम जिन जिन साइट्स के ऊपर काम करना चाह रहे थे, हम लोगों ने वहां 10-10 साल काम किया और हम पौधों को बचा नहीं पाए, लेकिन आपके इस अभियान के कारण हमारा सबसे हाईएस्ट सर्वाइवल रेट है पूरे इंडिया में, अमंग एनी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इन इंडिया। हमारा 90% प्लस सर्वाइवल रेट होता है सैपलिंग्स का। एंड यू नो व्हाई? इट इज ऑल बिकॉज हम मिट्टी पे बहुत ध्यान देते हैं। तो ये जो वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट अगर आप अपने लेवल पे कर सके, वी हैव अ होल नेटवर्क ऑफ फैमिलीज जो अपने अपने घर में खाद बनाती है, अपने अपने घर में कंपोस्ट बनाती है, फिर वो हम लोगों को व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप्स में कनेक्ट करते हैं, वो हमारे को साइट्स पे लाके देते हैं, और सेम कंपोस्ट जो है हम यूज करते हैं अपनी प्लांटेशन साइट्स पे। We have about 30 active plantation sites in Delhi NCR region. I will invite Shama Mukherjee College students कि आप आइए और प्रैक्टिकली उन साइट्स को देखिए, आप आइए और प्रैक्टिकली वहां काम कीजिए, आइए स्पीसीज पे काम कीजिए, वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट सीखिए, आप वहां वर्मी कंपोस्टिंग कैसे होती है, कितने स्पीसीज ऑफ बर्ड्स वहां पर आनी शुरू हुई हैं, कैसे हम बीज के होने से कैसे पॉलिनेशन ज्यादा हुई और कैसे ग्रीनरी बढ़ी, कैसे बटरफ्लाइज के आने से पूरा माहौल बदल गया, कैसे रेप्टाइल्स और स्नेक्स के आने से पूरा का पूरा बायोडाइवर्सिटी का मैप पूरा बदल गया। तो देयर इज सो मच टू लर्न, सो मच टू लर्न। वन थिंग दैट आई वुड लाइक टू शेयर, बिकॉज द टाइम इज लेस, बातें बहुत हैं, 45 years ऑफ वर्क है, मैं अगर शेयरिंग पे आऊंगा तो बहुत सारी चीजें। आई वॉज told to talk for about 20 minutes on ecological footprint. अपने इंडिविजुअल लेवल पे हम जो कर सकते हैं हमको करना बहुत जरूरी है। देखो बेटा, ये कहना कि हाँ सरकारें ये नहीं कर रही हैं, सरकारें वो नहीं कर रही, उस लेवल पे तो मैंने आपको पहले ही एक बात कह दी कि हम ये चीजें जो हैं लड़ाई झगड़े से नहीं, कोई जरूरी नहीं है गाली गलौज से या हम ऊंची आवाज में बात करें, लेकिन वी शुड स्पीक अप, we should speak up, and especially the political representative, उनसे तो हमें जरूर सवाल पूछने चाहिए, तभी उनकी मानसिकता भी बढ़ेगी, तभी उनका भी होगा। बाकी काफी अवेयरनेस है लोगों में, एक्शन नहीं है। अवेयरनेस बहुत है, एजुकेशन बहुत है, लेकिन अवेयरनेस नहीं है। और मालूम है अवेयरनेस क्यों नहीं, मतलब एक्शन क्यों नहीं है? एक्शन इसलिए नहीं है क्योंकि बातें करने वाले तो बहुत सारी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं, मैं बातें भी नहीं कहूंगा, रिसर्च बेस्ड ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं, एकेडमिकली बड़ी साउंड ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं, लेकिन जो धरातल पे काम कर रहा है, जो ग्राउंड पे काम कर रहा है, वो ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस बहुत कम, बिकॉज दे आर द वंस which will give you an opportunity to go there and do some practical work. ये जो practical work है ना, ये फ्रेंड्स बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। आई नो यू पीपल आर जिस तरह की आपकी एजुकेशन चल रही है, आप यूनिवर्सिटी में, कॉलेजेस में हैं, बहुत सारे आप में से बच्चे मास्टर्स भी करेंगे, मास्टर्स के बाद PhD भी करेंगे। रिमेंबर वन थिंग इन लाइफ, एंड दिस आई एम सेइंग, दो आई एम नॉट एन एनवायरमेंटलिस्ट इन दैट सेंस, मेरा एकेडमिक बैकग्राउंड साइंस में, बॉटनी में या हॉर्टिकल्चर, बायोटेक्नोलॉजी में नहीं है, एग्रीकल्चर में नहीं है, लेकिन मैंने हजारों लोगों के साथ काम किया। एंड सबसे ज्यादा उनकी जो कमी मैंने देखी वो थी कि प्रैक्टिकल वर्क नहीं, एक्सपीरियंस, उनको फील्ड एक्सपीरियंस हम जिसको बोलते हैं। सो आपको हम अपॉर्चुनिटी देते हैं, आपको जब भी एक बार ये कोरोना काल खत्म हो जाए, जब आपका है, आई वुड रिक्वेस्ट योर कॉलेज मैनेजमेंट, आई वुड रिक्वेस्ट द टीचर्स, आई रिक्वेस्ट ऑल ऑफ यू कि आप हमसे कांटेक्ट कीजिए and we will give you that opportunity to work on the land. We have 30 active sites in Delhi NCR. We will teach you anything and everything. आप वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट की बात करते हैं, देखिए वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट अपने आप में इतना बड़ा टॉपिक है। अगर मैं सिर्फ सॉइल के ऊपर भी बात करूं, या सॉइल की बायोकेमिस्ट्री पे बात करूं, या मैं सिर्फ कंपोस्टिंग पे बात करूं, वर्मी कंपोस्टिंग पे बात करूं, it will take me another 2 hours or so. But here is an invitation. I would sincerely, lovingly, affectionately, I would like to say, come and work. थोड़ा प्रैक्टिकल वर्क आप कीजिए ताकि आपको साक्षात आपको समझ आए कि कैसे होती हैं चीजें। क्योंकि जो बुक्स में आप पढ़ते हैं, थ्योरी में पढ़ते हैं, और जब आप लैंड पे आके काम करते हैं ना, उसमें ह्यूज गैप होता है। बेसिक प्रिंसिपल्स वही रहते हैं, लेकिन ह्यूज गैप होता है। वो क्यों होता है? क्योंकि हर मिट्टी की कहानी अलग होती है, वेदर कंडीशंस अलग होती हैं, सॉइल की हाइड्रोलॉजी अलग होती है ना। जब आप एक्चुअली आते हैं तो चैलेंजेस अलग होंगे। भैंस, बकरी और गाय पे एनक्रोचमेंट्स होती हैं, ह्यूमन एनक्रोचमेंट्स होती हैं, फेंसिंग की प्रॉब्लम होती है, सिक्योरिटी की प्रॉब्लम होती है, सॉल्टी वाटर होता है, हार्ड वाटर की प्रॉब्लम्स होता है, सो मेनी बिग प्रॉब्लम्स आर देयर। सो बट व्हेन यू कम एंड वर्क ऑन द लैंड, तो आपने जो भी आपने बुक्स में पढ़ा है, कॉलेज में पढ़ा है, क्लास में पढ़ा है, उसको आप प्रैक्टिकली जब आप करते हैं वहां पे, तो आपकी जो ज्ञानवर्धन है, आपका बहुत ही अलग एक पर्सपेक्टिव आता है चीजों को लेके। सो दिस इज समथिंग आई वांटेड टू शेयर विद यू कि प्रैक्टिकल वर्क के ऊपर, फील्ड वर्क के ऊपर प्लीज फ्रेंड्स, जब भी मौका मिले, जहां भी मौका मिले, आप जरूर करें। एंड दिस इज समथिंग विच आई शेयर विद every student that I meet. 45 years का हमारा भी practical experience, field experience है, and on that basis I'm talking to you about these things. Okay, ज़्यादा ना समय लेते हुए, I would like to throw the thing open to you people. Would you like to ask some questions? If you would like to, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your knowledge with us. Now we take some questions from the audience. Over to you, Asta.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Sir, you told that farmers are using fertilizers and all to increase their productivity. So, sir, how we can encourage our farmers to use less fertilizers so that soil can revive their fertility?
Yes. Okay. Now we are working with about 50 farmers in Meerut. I'll just give you one small case study. We started creating, we took 2 acres of land on rent, Udaipur village in Meerut. हम लोगों ने वहां पर वर्मी कंपोस्ट स्टेशन लगाए, 70 वर्मी कंपोस्ट स्टेशन। फिर हमने इन किसानों को, उदयपुर गांव है, मीरा गांव है, अमेरा गांव है, 2-3 गांव, हमने उनके फार्मर्स को घर घर जाके कहा, आप खाद हमसे लीजिए, ठीक है, ले लीजिए, फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट लीजिए, आप उसमें वेजिटेबल्स उगाइए। उन्होंने अपना, वहां पर ज्यादा गन्ना की खेती होती है मेरठ साइड पे, तो बहुत सारे लोगों को, एंड गन्ना जो होता है उसमें ना ही केमिकल फर्टिलाइजर बहुत लगता है, पेस्टिसाइड्स बहुत लगते हैं, इंसेक्टिसाइड्स बहुत लगते हैं, पानी की कंजम्पशन बहुत ज्यादा होती है, तो ग्राउंड वाटर भी कम होता है। जब आप सॉइल के ऊपर काम करते हैं, हेल्दी सॉइल्स के बारे में फार्मर्स को एजुकेट करते हैं, उनको पहले वो चीज करके दिखानी पड़ेगी। फार्मर जो होता है वो गरीब है, वो बेचारा इकोनॉमिकली इतना स्ट्रॉन्ग कुछ फार्मर्स नहीं होते हैं कि वो रिस्क ले सके, और पहली बात तो वो एजुकेशन और अवेयरनेस की बात आ जाती है ना। तो हमने उनको फ्री में उनको वर्मी कंपोस्ट दिया। अब nearly 70% of the farmers who use the vermicompost, who use the compost, क्योंकि हमने पहले बना के उनको दिया। अब वो खुद कहते हैं कि हमारी प्रोडक्शन डबल हुई है। ये 3 सालों की बात कह रहा हूं मैं आपको। और उनको, दिस इज अ ब्यूटीफुल केस स्टडी। एंड अब वो केमिकल फर्टिलाइजर उन्होंने खरीदना बंद कर दिया, उन्होंने पेस्टिसाइड खरीदना बंद कर दिया। अब जैसे हमें ये समझना होगा कि एग्रीकल्चर में अगर आपका 10% जो एग्रीकल्चर प्रोडक्शन है, अगर वो खराब भी हो जाती है बिकॉज ऑफ सम कीड़े लग जाते हैं, कुछ रेड रॉट डिजीज लग जाती है या रूट फंगस लग जाता है, इट इज हेल्दी फॉर द सॉइल। वो पौधों को गिरते रहना चाहिए, वो फिर मिक्स होते हैं। हम जैसे किसानों को सिखाते हैं कि लीफ फॉल को झाड़ू लगा के हटाइए मत, वहां से उसको जलाइए मत, जस्ट लेट द लीफ बी ऑन द फार्म, यू नो। फिर वो डिकम्पोज होती है, वो सॉइल की लेयर्स बनाती है। आप एक चीज समझ लीजिए, इंडिया इज लूजिंग इट्स सॉइल वेरी फास्ट। ये नहीं है कि सिर्फ हमारा पानी खत्म हो रहा है या हमारी हवा का प्रदूषण लेवल हो रहा है। यू नो, वन ऑफ द मेजर रीजंस इज क्योंकि हमारा जो कार्बन सिक्वेस्ट्रेशन है, क्योंकि सॉइल इज द मोस्ट पावरफुल, आप लोग तो पढ़ते हैं इन सब्जेक्ट्स को, सॉइल इज द मोस्ट पावरफुल कार्बन सिक्वेस्ट्रेशन के लिए एक टूल है आपका, है ना। इट्स अ लिविंग ऑर्गेनिज्म। तो सॉइल, आई थिंक फार्मर को ना, अगर इंडियन फार्मर को आप कुछ भी ना सिखाएं, उसको सिर्फ सॉइल के ऊपर अगर आप एजुकेट कर दें कि ये देखो तुम्हारी अगर मिट्टी अच्छी है तो इस तरह से पर्यावरण के लिए अच्छा हुआ, इस तरह से तुम्हारी हेल्थ के लिए अच्छा होगा, तुम जहर नहीं खाओगे। उनको हम समझाते हैं कि आप जो यूरिया डालते हैं, डाई डालते हैं, एनपीके डालते हैं, ये जो केमिकल की चीजें डालते हो, बेयर की ये जो सारा आप पेस्टिसाइड इंसेक्टिसाइड डाल रहे हो, उसकी जो डिब्बी पे भी रेड क्रॉस और स्कल बना होता है कि ये पॉइजन है। तो उनको समझाना पड़ता है फ्रेंड्स कि अगर आप 1 चम्मच यूरिया लेके अपनी चाय के कप में घोल के पियेंगे तो आप सीधा सीधा हॉस्पिटल पहुंच जाओगे। और आप बोरियां की बोरियां, 20-20 बोरियां 1 एकड़ में आप फार्म में डाल रहे हैं, आप खेत में डाल रहे हैं, तो वो यूरिया को इवेपोरेट थोड़ा ना हो जाएगा, वो तो सॉइल में मिक्स होगा, फिर आपके रूट्स में से फिर आपकी फार्म प्रोडक्ट में आएगा, आपके वेजिटेबल्स में आएगा, आपकी ग्रेन्स में आएगा, राइस में आएगा, मिलेट्स में आएगा, हर चीज में आएगा। तो वो जो है कहाँ जाएगा? आपकी शरीर में जाएगा, फिर वो सेल्स में जाके वो टॉक्सिक जो चीजें हैं, फिर वो कई टाइप के कैंसर्स और कई टाइप के कार्सिनोजन, कई टाइप की वो डिजीजेस, एंड फिर हम कहते हैं लाइफस्टाइल डिजीजेस हो गई, ये हो गई। बेसिकली तो सारी कहानी मिट्टी की है। एज एनवायरमेंट स्टूडेंट्स आपको समझना है, अगर आपकी मिट्टी ठीक है ना, आपकी हवा भी ठीक होगी। आपकी अगर मिट्टी ठीक है ना, तो आपकी हाइड्रोलॉजी भी ठीक होगी। अगर आपकी मिट्टी ठीक है ना, आपका ग्राउंड वाटर भी ठीक होगा। आपकी मिट्टी ठीक है ना, तो आपकी वेलनेस भी ठीक होगी और आपकी हेल्थ भी ठीक होगी। आपकी मिट्टी ठीक है ना, तो आपकी एंजाइटी, आपका डिप्रेशन, आपकी ये इरिटेशन, आपका सब पूरा हमारा जो वेलनेस है। एक बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग चीज है, हमारी नानी हमें कहा करती थी कि बाद में हमने बहुत सारी चीजें जब पढ़ी, जब गूगल आया, हम गूगल पे भी इन चीजों को पढ़ते थे। डू यू नो, अगर आप अपना स्किन का एक स्वैब लेके आप अपने लेबोरेटरी में टेस्टिंग के लिए देंगे, और जो मिट्टी है, केमिकल फर्टिलाइजर वाली मिट्टी नहीं, नॉर्मल मिट्टी, किसी नदी के किनारे की मिट्टी उठा लीजिए, या किसी पुराने विशाल पेड़ है पीपल का या बरगद का, उसके नीचे की थोड़ी मिट्टी उठा के आप वो भी सॉइल टेस्टिंग के लिए दीजिए। 98% of the chemical composition of the soil and your skin is the same. हम बेटा मिट्टी से ही आए हैं, मिट्टी में ही जाना है हमको। और ये जो बात होती है ना इकोलॉजिकल फुटप्रिंट की, अगर हमारा हिंदुस्तान सिर्फ मिट्टी की भाषा समझ जाए और ये समझ जाए कि हम डोंट प्ले अराउंड विद योर सॉइल, हम सॉइल के अंदर जब केमिकल फर्टिलाइजर डालते हैं, सॉइल को हम खराब करते हैं ना, तो हम अपनी डेस्टिनी खराब करते हैं, हम अपनी लाइफ खराब करते हैं, हम अपनी हेल्थ खराब करते हैं, हम अपनी इकोनॉमी खराब करते हैं, हम अपनी फैमिली खराब करते हैं, हम अपनी लाइफ जो लाइफ स्पैन है वो हम कम कर रहे हैं। सारी चीजें जापान में आई रियलाइज कि जब हम ट्रैवल करते हैं तो जापान में मिट्टी को पूछते हैं वो लोग, जापान में केमिकल फर्टिलाइजर्स का बहुत 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 कम यूज होता है। जर्मनी में, डेनमार्क में, स्वीडन में, नॉर्वे, फिनलैंड में, इवन एम्स्टर्डम या अपना नेदरलैंड्स में अब इन्होंने फ्रांस में भी शुरू किया है, स्पेन में, पोर्चुगल में। आप जितने भी डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज ले लीजिए, भूटान ले लीजिए, भूटान चलो आपके हिसाब से शायद डेवलप ना हो, लेकिन हैप्पीनेस इंडेक्स में नंबर 1। आप देखो ये लोग मिट्टी को कितना 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 तवज्जो देते हैं, मिट्टी को अपना प्योर रखते हैं। अगर आप मिट्टी को प्योर रखेंगे, सी यू आर स्टूडेंट्स ऑफ एनवायरनमेंट। अब मैं इसके ऊपर बहुत लंबा लेक्चर नहीं ले सकता, लेकिन प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट आई एम सेइंग। पीपल बाबा की ये बात याद रखना, मिट्टी से कहानी शुरू होती है, मिट्टी पे खत्म होती है। अगर आप अपनी मिट्टी को कंट्रोल कर लेते हो ना, तो उसके अंदर आप जो भी लगाओगे वो अच्छा उगेगा, जो भी लगाओगे हेल्दी उगेगा, आपका इनपुट कॉस्ट कम होगी। क्यों? सारा कुछ नेचुरल है, आपका इकोलॉजिकल फुटप्रिंट कितना कम हो जाता है। सो जैसे डॉक्टर गायत्री ने एक चीज बोली, अब मैं उसको ज्यादा एक्सपैंड नहीं करूंगा बिकॉज टाइम कम है। आई कैन if that answers your question, so I'm ready to take the next one. Yeah.
Astha, any other question?
No, no more questions. I think this all almost.
Yes, sir has sufficed everything. Okay, so Payal.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Now we over to Dr. Shivesh Barwal, sir, for a vote of thanks.
Okay, good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you very much, Shri Swami Prem Privartan, sir, for your enlightening speech. And I am very much sure that you are this wonderful talk that have inspired many of us today, and especially so many students present over here. Sir, you explain everything in a very simple way about all these ecological footprint. You focus on agriculture sector, soil management, verming composting. You even told us that how we can manage waste at our household level also by making compost, especially from the kitchen waste. That is the main source that we are generating at our household level. And sir, I'm agreed with you. And in our daily busy lives, we all need regular reminders of our connection with nature and planet. And we can see, sir, high-level debates that are going on these issues in every part of the countries to create awareness. But it's good to see that people like you are doing something practically at grassroots levels. And your organization is contributing much to the environmental awareness and you can say sustenance. And sir, I would like to add one more point here, that all the students present over here of our college, they are also doing a little bit from their end. All of them are planting tree at their native homes and they are taking care of that and they are sending us pictures of that too. And I would request students also that please go through their website, Give Me Trees Trust, and there you will find many options that how an individual can be a part of this organization and how you can contribute to the environmental sustenance. So at the last, sir, I would again thank you on behalf of Eco Club Durva, SPM College, and all the students. And it would be immense pleasure for us to invite you once more in the near future, so as to spread awareness.
Sure.
And thank you, sir.
Once the corona thing is over, मेरा दिली इच्छा है कि हमारे कॉलेज के बच्चे जो हैं, टीचर्स भी जो हैं, हमारी साइट विजिट्स करें या हमारी टीम भी आपके कॉलेज में आए, हम भी जो प्रैक्टिकल एस्पेक्ट्स हैं उनको हम उजागर करें। क्योंकि थियोरी में, जैसे आपने कहा, थियोरी में बहुत सारी बातें होती हैं, वो भी अच्छा है, थियोरी भी आनी चाहिए हर चीज की, लेकिन जब तक आप प्रैक्टिकल और हैंड्स ऑन नहीं करते हैं चीजें, तो वो फिर अलग ही एक मैजिक होता है ना। सो थैंक यू सो मच फॉर हैविंग, थैंक यू सो मच।
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू, नमस्कार सर।
थैंक यू सर,
Thank you, sir.
थैंक यू।
Let me introduce third speaker, Dr. Anvishya Borthakur. She is a research fellow at the Center for Studies in Science Policy at Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. She has an MPhil and PhD in Science Policy Studies. The area of her both MPhil and PhD studies was waste and management and policy implications in India. She has published more than 30 papers, chapters in international peer-reviewed journals and books. Presently working as a postdoctoral fellow at KU Leuven in Belgium. Now I request Dr. Anvishya Borthakur ma'am to address our esteemed participants. Over to you, ma'am.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Okay, let me try to share my presentation first. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, shall I switch off my video because I am at my home in Assam Arunachal Pradesh border, so we don't have very good internet connectivity here. So I'm switching off my video. Is that okay?
Okay,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am, it's okay.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk in this seminar today. I am going to talk about the generation, management, and policy implications of electronic waste. You can easily relate it to your ecological footprint or carbon footprint that we are currently talking about. Okay, let me figure it out. Okay, so let me begin by giving you a brief about electronic waste or e-waste. What is electronic waste and why its management is so important in the current global scenario. Electronic waste is also known as waste electrical and electronic equipment. It basically signifies all the discarded appliances that utilize electricity for their functioning. So every equipment with a battery or a plug at the end of its useful life is an electronic waste. It is relatively a new addition to the waste stream. However, at the same time, it is one of the fastest growing toxic waste streams in the world today. In fact, a very recent report by the United Nations University stated that e-waste was the fastest growing domestic waste stream in the year 2019. Just to give you an example of the potential e-waste that are stored in your household, you can just have a look at this picture. You can find many of these things in your houses, and these are all the potential e-waste that you have stored at your houses at present. These are very common, and you can see that all these equipments have a particular lifespan, after which all of these will become obsolete and contribute to the electronic waste stream, which is currently a major waste stream in the world. This is a picture of my kitchen when I was in Germany a few years back, and I decided to mark the electronic products, electronic and electrical products that are there in the kitchen. Many of these equipments are nowadays very common in Indian kitchen as well. These are all potential e-waste that are stored in your house. And this is just the example of a kitchen, and you can find many such equipments throughout your houses. So just to give you an overview of how electronic waste is increasing these days and how much electronic waste we are using in our daily lives. The recent statistics of electronic waste generation are equally alarming. According to the United Nations Global E-Waste Monitor 2020, a record 53.6 million metric tons of e-waste was generated around the world in the year 2019 alone. And this volume was up by 21% in just 5 years' time. However, only a little over 17% of the e-waste that was generated in 2019 was actually collected and recycled. Most of this e-waste were either in landfill or even incinerated. So you can see that only a very little portion of the electronic waste that is being generated in the world at present are actually collected and recycled. It has also been forecasted that by the year 2030, e-waste volume will reach 74 million metric tons, which is a really huge volume. And that's why we need to act very soon in order to deal with this toxic category of waste. It is very visible that e-waste is growing almost exponentially as global consumer demand continues to increase and replacement cycles of our electronic products are getting shorter and shorter. Now, let us look at the case of India, how India is contributing to the electronic waste stream. So if you see the whole electronic waste generation scenario in the world, you will find that the emerging economies or the developing countries are contributing a lot to the electronic waste stream, especially the emerging economies. India is an emerging economy, as we already know. Emerging economies today include 1/3 of world's largest 25 economies. It is these economies are these countries like India and China. These are basically experiencing a much faster growth rate as compared to many developed countries. Countries like India and China are today at the forefront of world's economic stage. Particularly, the Eastern and Southern Asian countries are rising very rapidly, bringing new market potential. And one of the very interesting facts is that 40% of the global middle class population today resides in China, India, Russia, and Brazil. All are emerging economies. And this middle class population is actually one of the major consumer of electronic products and thus one of the major contributors to the electronic waste stream. Therefore, in our country, the problem of electronic waste needs even more addressing than many other countries, probably in Africa or in many less developed countries. Now, you can see that India is one of the largest generators of e-waste in the world. Together with China and USA, it contributed to 38% of global e-waste in the year 2019. A very recently published report in July 2021, it has been mentioned that India saw a 31.6% increase in e-waste production as compared to the previous year. Domestically, we produce around 2 million tons of electronic waste per year. However, a major concern with Indian e-waste is that a large volume of e-waste is being imported to the country from many developed countries, which is known as the Transboundary Movement of hazardous waste. Around 50,000 tons of e-waste is being imported into the country every year. However, all these numbers are very superficial, which can give you just an idea of the volume of e-waste that is being generated. There is no such reliable quantification of the amount of e-waste that is being imported into our country, for instance. That's why we don't really know how much is being imported, because when they are being imported, they are often imported in the name of working equipments or in the name of donation, but not in the name of electronic waste. And this import of e-waste or of e-waste across boundaries are known as the transboundary movement. Now, how this transboundary movement looks. So these are some of the known and suspected routes of e-waste dumping. Here you can see the green dots. These green dots are basically the source countries. You can see the red dots, which are kind of the destination countries, and there are a few suspected destination countries as well. What does this map signify? It signifies that countries like United States, European Union member states, South Korea, Japan, Australia, and so on, they send their electronic waste in the name of working equipments or in the name of donation to countries such as India, Pakistan, China, Mexico, Singapore, and so on. So when they send these electronic equipments, they send it in the name of donation or in the name of working equipments. That's one of the reasons that we don't really know how much e-waste is actually being sent. Those are actually the e-waste. Those are not working equipments or donation when they land in countries like India. However, there is this convention called the Basal Convention. the Basal Convention on the Control of Transboundary Movements of Hazardous Waste and their disposal. This convention came into force since the year 1992. This convention basically restricts the export of toxic waste from developed to developing countries. So ideally, countries like the USA, countries like in the European Union, they cannot send their electronic waste to countries like India, Pakistan, or any West African countries like Nigeria or Ghana. However, the loopholes in the Basel Convention are very conveniently explored by many developed countries. For instance, if you look at the USA, you will find that it is a non-ratifying country of the Basel Convention, and 50 to 80% of the e-waste that is being collected in the USA is actually sent to many destinations in Asia and Africa. A significant portion of the e-waste that is being sent to these countries actually directly go to the informal recycling sites. For instance, these e-waste mainly finds their ways to the informal recycling, mostly present in the slum areas in major Indian cities. However, there is a definitional framework of electronic waste, controversy of electronic waste, which makes it a major policy concern. Here you can see the definition of e-waste according to the European Union. All the electronic equipments are classified into these 10 broad categories, and a number of appliances are included under each of these 10 categories. For instance, under the household appliances, you can find your washing machine, your air conditioner, and so on. In medical devices, for instance, you can find the MRI or the X-ray machines. In automatic dispensers, you have your ATM machine, you have the automatic coffee machine, and so on. Now the European Union has the definition a bit, but the essence remains the same. It is very broad, and a lot of electronic and electrical equipments are included under its definition and framework. Look at the Indian definition, however, it is far narrower as compared to the European definition. Only 2 categories of electronic equipments that are marked red here are included under Indian definition, and only 21 varieties of electronic equipments are included in these 2 broad categories. So our definition of electronic waste is far as compared to its counterparts in the European Union, and this is one of the reasons that e-waste policies are not working very effectively. Also, another interesting aspect with the Indian e-waste generation, or like any other emerging economies and developing countries, you will see that the generation of e-waste in countries like India is still very low. It is 1 kg per inhabitant per year. However, at the same time, a country like Switzerland produces 26.3 kg of e-waste per inhabitant per year. If you see at the total volume, India, however, produces way more than Switzerland. It is because of the fact that India has a population size which is more than 150 times than that of Switzerland. Also, it has a huge consumer electronics market as compared to Switzerland, and thus, although the per capita or the per person generation of e-waste is still very low, we produce a lot more in the absolute terms. So if anybody says to you that, like India is still not producing e-waste in large quantities, you can give this argument. We are not producing per capita a huge volume, but if you look at the total volume, it is still very high. Now, coming to the management of electronic waste, it is a major environmental justice concern. But how it is a major environmental justice concern? Let us take the example of our mobile phones. So I have recently read an article published in the magazine Down to Earth, and it says that an individual checks his or her mobile 58 times in 16 waking hours a day on an average. So most of us probably can relate to this particular statement. We are dependent on electronic waste a lot these days. So however, what goes into the making of these electronic products? The main components of electronic products are many metals. For instance, there are a lot of heavy metals which are very harmful to the environment and also to the human health. And from where these metals come from? These metals basically come from these are beautiful nature areas which are being mined for the extraction of the metals that are needed for the manufacturing of our mobile phones. These mobile phones come mostly from underdeveloped or developing countries. For instance, copper, which is a prime component in our electronic products, it mostly comes from Chile, which is world's largest supplier of copper, but also it comes from many countries in North and South America. There is lithium. The leading producers again include Chile, Argentina, Australia, and China. Cobalt, the world's largest, almost half of the world's cobalt supply comes from the Republic of Congo. You have manganese, where India is also a major contributor to the contributor of manganese, which is again used for the production of your mobile phones. So you can see that the minerals or the metals that are present in our mobile phones basically come from many developing or low income countries. And this goes into the production of your mobile phone. Mobile phone is just an example of electronic products that we are using right now. You can figure out so many electronic products that are lying throughout all across your household, and you can find the amount of minerals that go into the manufacturing of all these products. But how long do we use our mobile phones? So we mostly use our mobile phones for say 2 to 4 years. This is the result of a study I conducted during my PhD, and you can in the city of Bangalore, and you can see that actually state that they use their mobile phones beyond 4 years. So our mobile phones become obsolete within a lifetime of 4 years. And this is, we actually do not really utilize the whole lifespan of our electronic products. We discard them very much within their own lifespan. And all this leads to generation of electronic waste. Why electronic waste is such a complex stream of waste? It is because it contains many hazardous chemicals which are extremely harmful to the human health and the environment. I have given you the example of the heavy metals. Also, you have persistent organic pollutants which are extremely harmful both to our human health and environment. On the other hand, electronic waste also consists of significant portions of precious metals, and thus it is also known as urban mines, because precious metals sometimes occur at concentrations more than 10-fold higher in printed wiring boards than in mined minerals. So the concentration is very high, and this is one of the reasons that if we can extract the metals from electronic waste, which the pile of electronic waste, rather than going to the natural ores, it will reduce the burden of our environment. Electronic waste, most of it is produced in the informal sector, and in the informal sector, it is produced by using very rudimentary techniques. For instance, they mix different kinds of concentrated acids, and also they burn some of the electronic products in the open air, and it is a source of almost all kinds of pollution, be it air, water, soil, noise. All major kinds of pollutions could be observed in the informal recycling sites of electronic waste. Many low-skilled laborers are, including a lot of women and children, are involved in this informal sector. They work in the informal sector without any health and safety measures, which was immense threat to their health. E-waste is a major source of income for the urban poor, unemployed, and low-skilled people, and therefore we must find a way through which we can manage or we can recycle our electronic waste responsibly without any health and environmental impacts. Regarding the management of waste in India, Indian waste management system is still dominated by the informal sector. Not only e-waste, actually, if you see in India, most of the recyclable waste management system is dominated by the informal sector. You can take the example of glass, paper, plastic, metals, everything. Those are actually, those recycling of those products are dominated by the informal sector. 95% of e-waste are recycled in the informal sector, whereas only 5% is handled in the formal sector. However, 75% of e-waste in the country are stored due to uncertainty of how to manage it. We don't really know where to take our products when our electronic products when they become out of use or obsolete. For instance, with our mobile phones nowadays, we have all these apps, our banking details, our email details, and many other personal details are stored in our electronic products. And that's why nowadays we are very reluctant to throw them off until and unless we are being ensured that the privacy aspect will be taken care of properly. For instance, for me, I took my electronic products and I discarded electronic products, means my mobile phone, and I prefer to discard it in Belgium rather than in India, because in Belgium, they ensure that proper privacy related aspects will be dealt with properly. But here, I don't really know what to do about it. Another interesting aspect is that e-waste is often viewed as a commodity with some intrinsic value. For instance, as compared to the prices of our clothes or our utensils, for instance, electronic equipments are expensive. And that's why we have this sense that it is still a commodity even if we stop using it. And this causes a kind of reluctance among the consumers to discard their electronic waste just after their use. Just to give you an idea of how the informal and formal recycling sites look like. So here is an example of a formal e-waste recycling facility. You can see that all the workers are with health and safety gears. The environment is very convenient, and they are working. They are using a lot of machines to dismantle the electronic products and work. However, this is how the informal e-waste recycling sites look like. You can see that the kind of hazards that this kind of sites produce both to the human health and the environment. Here you can see that a lot of women and children are involved, because women and children are believed to have nimble fingers, and many recyclers, informal recyclers, believe that they can extract minutest amount of metals from the electronic waste with their fingers. So this is one of the reasons that the amount of although it is informal sector is the dominant electronic waste recycling hub, but still it has a lot of environmental and human health aspects which need urgent addressing. I would urge you to go through this environmental justice atlas. You can just Google it and you will find this global environmental justice atlas, and you will find a lot of cases of environmental justice here, just like the informal e-waste recycling activities. You can see that a country like India is full of such cases, environmental, I would say, injustice cases. Here you can see different dots in different colors. For instance, the blue dots are related to water management, green dots are related to biodiversity conservation, black dots are related to environmental justice concerns associated with fossil fuel extraction and so on. You can click on each of these dots and you can read the case. So you can find out that the emerging economies all across the globe are full of such cases because the environment in our places are being harmed, or the resources are being extracted for the development purposes. India, for instance, not only satisfies the need of the own country, but many products, for instance, textiles, go to many Western countries from India. So the burden is way more higher in these countries as compared to the developed world in the global north. Now, coming to the electronic waste governance, you will see that the pioneer in electronic waste policies are basically the European Union member states. So European Union countries, they had basically two directives. One is called the Waste Electrical and Electronic Equipment Directive, or the WEEE Directive, and another one is the Restriction of Hazardous Substances, or ROS Directive. This WEEE Directive takes extended producers' responsibility at its core. It says that the producers of the electronic products should be responsible for the end-of-life disposal of the electronic products that they sell. However, the ROS directive, it basically limits the use of many heavy metals and other pollutants in electronic equipment. And these two directives form the basis of many other directives in many countries all across the globe. So European Union was kind of a pioneer in the e-waste policy making. So if we come to the electronic waste legislation in India, you will find that we basically had two directives. First came up in the year 2011, and the next one came up in the year 2016, which was again amended in the year 2018. So all these, both these two directives, they placed extended producers' responsibility at the center, just as the European Union's directive. However, we have an entirely different waste management system. I have already talked about the informal recycling. So we already have a very different waste management system than the many countries in the global north or many developed countries. And therefore, our approach or our legislation or policy approaches should be based on the socio-economic, cultural, political, environmental scenario of our own country. We cannot copy the rule of one country and paste it in the context of another. This is particularly true for a country like India, which is very diverse. We have this very extensive network of waste pickers. For instance, we call them kawadiwalas, and there is no mention of them in the e-waste legislations in India. However, these kawadiwalas actually are at the center of recycling waste, recyclable waste management in India since ever. So after talking about electronic waste, I would not prefer to end my presentation in a negative note. So with e-waste, there comes an opportunity as well. I have already mentioned that e-waste is also known as a kind of urban mines, because 300 grams of gold per tons of mobile phone could be extracted from urban mines, whereas only 2 to 5 grams of gold per tons could be extracted from the natural ores. So you can see the concentration of gold in your mobile phone is way higher than in the natural ores. Gold doesn't lose its property. It is also a very good conductor of electricity, and that is why it finds its way in many electronic equipments. Many economists have actually pointed out that as the generation of e-waste is increasing to a few million tons, there is a possibility to industrialize the whole informal sector. And if we treat e-waste as urban mines, it will lead to a kind of environmental sustainability in terms of the fact that the burden in the natural ores will be reduced. It will also contribute to a kind of a circular economy with little waste generation. So here in this picture, you can see that if we treat our electronic waste as urban mines, and if we can extract the metals present there, the burden will be reduced and we won't have a place like the second picture anymore. So from the nature, we no longer need to extract our metals. In summary, I would say that the demand for electrical and electronic equipment is increasing a lot. For instance, electronics is one of the largest and fastest growing industries in the world at present. You can see at any e-commerce sites, for instance, you can see in in Amazon, in Flipkart, and you will see that new and new models of electronic equipment are being placed into the market every single day. So the the demand for electronics is increasing a lot. The COVID-19 pandemic, I would say, has further boosted this demand. What could be a better example than a seminar like this, where all of us are today interacting virtually with an electronic product as a medium. So so it is increasing a lot, and thus when the demand for electronic products are increasing, it will lead to a greater generation of e-waste, because we must remember that all these electronic products have a particular lifespan, after which they become obsolete or out of use. In India, the per capita generation is still very low, but the absolute volume is very high. Again, with the pandemic, the per capita generation has the potential to increase a bit, because I happened to be in my husband's place in Kashmir during the 2020's lockdown, and I could see how the demand for smartphones suddenly, like it was boosted by the COVID-19 pandemic, because children needed it for their education, teachers again needed it for education, many other people, they need them as well. So the per capita generation till now is low, but it will be high in the coming years. The management of electronic waste in India is still dominated by the informal sector. The transboundary movement from the developed to developing countries is a major concern, because we don't really know how much volume is being sent to our countries, because those are sent in the name of donation or working equipments, but not in the name of e-waste. Finally, I would say that there should be local specific governance strategies. So whatever laws and whatever policies that we make, it should be based on our local circumstances, taking into account the socio-cultural, political, economic, environmental, and all other aspects. And we cannot copy the policy of one country and paste it in the context of another. So with this, I'd like to end my presentation.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your valuable insights with us. Let us take some questions from the participants. Over to you, Mani.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. First of all, I just heard ma'am, and I was there throughout the session. Thank you for this knowledge, ma'am, and I'll definitely, you helped me a lot for articulating my parts and my role well. So there's a question for you, ma'am. After listening to your thoughts about e-waste, I have a question like, is biochemical extraction of metals like from electronic waste a commercially viable process in real sense? I'm just curious to know about it.
Yeah, so as I say, that as the generation of e-waste is being very high these days, so if we consider e-waste as urban mines, and if we can extract the metals through any biochemical or any microbiological process and commercialize it, so this will lead to a decrease in the environmental burden. But then we have to have certain kind of innovation. There should be research, adequate research. There are some kind of research that are being going on. However, most of these research are going on in many laboratories, and there is no shift of that knowledge from the lab to land. So in a laboratory, many things are easy to be conducted in a controlled environment. But then when you take it to the land, when you take it to the actual site, then you face a lot of trouble and a lot of challenges. So I would say that biochemical or microbiological extraction of metals are still a very viable option. But then you have the awareness among the consumers, you have willingness of the industries to invest in those kind of processes. And then I think it will be a viable option.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I request Dr. Nazia Tarat, ma'am, to propose vote of thanks.
Nazia.
Over to you, ma'am.
Insightful talk on the situation of e-waste management in India. It was really enlightening for us, even as teachers of environmental studies. There were several things which were knowledge for me as well, especially the issue of transboundary movement of e-waste. We knew that most of the waste was dumped on several coasts in India. We knew about that, but we did not know that it is happening in such a strategic manner. And there were several things. It was the most academic presentation of the day, I would say. And it increased our knowledge, even as teachers. I'm sure that our students learned a lot from all the presentations today. I would especially thank Dr. Anvishya for giving us a talk despite being unwell and despite struggling with COVID in the family as well. And the most important part, according to me, of the presentation from the point of view of our undergrad students was the hopefulness that you gave at the end of the presentation. And also when you talked about the concept of circular economy. Hopefully most of the students present in this session right now are from economics, and they should know that they are part of the solution and not part of the problem. So with that, I would also like to conclude this this session, this event today. I would like to thank Principal Ma'am, Professor Sadhana Sharma Ma'am, for always being forthcoming and always being really supportive for newer ideas and a facilitator of all these events. I want to thank our convener, Tripti Anand Ma'am, for being so generous with her time and her efforts, for always being there for us, and for sincerely working tirelessly for making all the events successful. And I want to thank Professor Meenu Agarwal Ma'am for being our guiding light. She's the most experienced person in our team, and she really gives valuable insights. I want to thank all the speakers for today. I think this was the best match of speakers that we could hope for. They were all from different backgrounds. We had some experiences from field. We also had some academic insights, and I really was inspired by what one of the speakers, all three of the speakers actually said that in different ways, that there is a lot of awareness, but very less effort. I hope that we all take it back from this session and we actually start working for it rather than spreading awareness, because whenever we talk about it in the class as well, most of the time we are only talking about awareness and not actually about working on it. And then I should definitely thank my colleagues, all of us who are part of the e-waste department and also of Eco Club, Dr. Sonal Bhatnagar, Dr. Shivesh Perwal, Dr. Yogita Singh. We have all worked a lot, but most of all, the student executive team, they make it all look really effortless. But I know that a lot of effort goes into it. They have managed the program really well. All the students who spoke, and also those who did not speak in the event today, I think they are all working from the background. And finally, I would like to thank Sarabjit sir and Johnny sir for making this event possible by being the experts, IT experts, arranging it on Zoom and YouTube as well. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone, and all for your valuable participation in the national workshop. With these words, I would like to wind up the workshop.
Yeah, but everyone should fill up the feedback form that has been shared. I think you can all see it in the chat box. So all the participants are requested to do that. And I want to thank every one of you for your participation. Payal, Tanisha, for this comparing. Perfectly done. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thanks to you also, you have arranged so good speakers. We are really enlightened to hear them. They are all from different fields. Yes, ma'am. It is a very good combination.
Thank you. Okay, then.
Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.